You're listening to I've Been Cooking, where chefs and food lovers take apart delicious dishes and piece by piece tell the story of how they're made. I'm Andrea, and I hope you enjoyed today's show.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Deep Dive. I'm Mark, and with me as always is Andrea. So if you're new here, we take your sources, articles, research, even your own notes sometimes, and we break them down and pull out the good stuff.
That's right. We do all the reading and researching so you don't have to. And by the way, if you want to explore even more about today's topic, you can head over to ivebeen.cooking. That's ivebeen.cooking.
Okay, so today's deep dive, you've been curious about Vietnamese-French fusion cuisine.
Yeah.
You sent over this great article by Isabella Nguyen. She's a sous chef who specializes in this unique blend of food. And, a lot of people think of fusion and they just think throwing a bunch of ingredients together. But what Isabella talks about is so much more than that.
Oh, for sure. Even just Isabella's background is incredible. She grew up in Hanoi, Vietnam. Her family ran a traditional noodle shop there. So you can imagine she really had a front row seat to some amazing food.
Yeah, those classic, bold Vietnamese flavors. But then she goes to France to study at Le Cordon Bleu.
Yeah.
Which is like the Harvard of culinary schools, right? And she just falls in love with French techniques.
Yeah. And get this, she's now a sous chef in Paris, second in command, and making magic happen in the kitchen.
What's so cool about Isabella is she's a real-life example of this cultural exchange we're talking about.
I love that. She's got those Vietnamese flavors ingrained in her, but also this mastery of elegant French cuisine. Like she's bridging two worlds. So in her article, she lays out 3 core principles of this fusion style.
Yeah. The first one is all about balancing flavors, which might sound simple. But it's more than that. You have those bright Vietnamese flavors, fish sauce, lime, lemongrass. Then on the French side, you've got those rich, buttery notes, wine, cream, herbs. It's all about finding that sweet spot where they complement and actually enhance each other.
Yeah, like culinary yin and yang. And I feel like it goes beyond the food, right? It's like a metaphor for the whole fusion process.
Right.
2 different cultures, 2 culinary traditions coming together to create something totally new and delicious. Exactly. And then she talks about contrasting textures, which is something I get really excited about. Think about a crispy baguette, that perfect French bread. Now pair that with something like silky rice noodles. Now that's a party in your mouth.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you on that one. I'm already imagining the crunch of the baguette against those noodles. And the contrast isn't just about the texture. It also reflects how differently these cultures approach food.
Totally. You've got the French emphasis on structure and how the food looks, and then the Vietnamese focus on those fresh, vibrant ingredients that just explode with flavor. It's like they're playing off each other right on your plate and creating this amazing experience.
It's like a culinary dance.
Yeah.
And her third principle is all about vivid palates. When I first read that, I thought, oh, it's about the visual appeal of the food, which is important. Vietnamese and French cuisines are known for their beautiful presentation. All those herbs, the colorful veggies.
Yeah. But she takes it even further. It's about engaging all your senses. The aroma of herbs, the sizzle of spices, the feeling of different textures in your mouth. It's about a complete sensory experience that just takes you somewhere else.
Totally. It's like those travel shows where you feel like you're actually in that bustling Vietnamese market or some charming Parisian cafe.
Right. But the big question is, how do you actually do it? How do you take those principles and make some delicious food at home?
Well, thankfully, Isabella gives us some specific techniques and examples, and that's where things get really interesting. Get ready, because we're diving into the heart of Vietnamese-French fusion. So we talked about the principles, but now I want to get my hands dirty. What are some ways we can actually start blending these 2 styles at home?
Well, Isabella actually gives a really cool example in the article. She talks about taking a classic French technique, sautéing, and combining it with the Vietnamese art of stir-frying. Now, on the surface, they might seem similar. High heat, quick cooking. But there are some key differences that really change things.
Ooh, I love getting into the nitty-gritty like this. What are those differences?
Well, think about the pans you use. For French sautéing, you often use a wider, shallower pan with those sloped sides, so things cook evenly and it's easy to toss. But with Vietnamese stir-frying, you usually use a wok. That deep, round-bottomed pan, it distributes heat so well.
Oh, the wok. I love using mine.
Such a versatile tool, right? And that shape helps create those intense, smoky flavors you find in Vietnamese food. Isabella suggests playing around with both techniques. Maybe use some French butter and herbs in a stir-fry. Or try a Vietnamese-inspired sauce in a sauté.
So it's not just about swapping ingredients, it's understanding how the techniques work together. It's like this culinary conversation happening right there in your pan.
Exactly. And she doesn't stop there. Isabella also talks about slow-cooked stews. where you can mix French herbs like thyme and rosemary with Vietnamese spices like star anise and cinnamon. Imagine how good your kitchen would smell.
Oh man, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. But it's not all about technique, right? She also gives us a list of some key ingredients for both sides of the fusion.
Oh, absolutely. So on the Vietnamese side, you got your classics, fish sauce for that umami depth, rice paper for those fresh spring rolls, hoisin sauce for dipping or glazing, and of course the fresh herbs, mint, basil, cilantro. They give Vietnamese food that bright aroma that's so essential.
Oh, yeah, you can't have Vietnamese food without that fresh, herby flavor.
And then for French cooking, you have those rich, creamy elements, butter, cream, cheese. But Isabella even suggests getting a little fancy and trying things like truffles. Can you imagine those earthy truffles with those bright Vietnamese flavors?
Whoa, it's a combo I never would have thought of. But it sounds amazing. That's what I love about this whole fusion thing. It's all about pushing boundaries and finding new flavor combinations.
Like a culinary adventure. Isabella gives some concrete examples too, like using a baguette as the base for a banh mi sandwich. You have that crusty bread, but then fill it with those classic Vietnamese flavors. Pickled veggies, cilantro, maybe some grilled pork or tofu.
Oh man, banh mi is one of my favorites. That crunch of the bread with the soft fillings is just perfect. Maybe a little sriracha mayo on top for some heat.
Right. And that's just one example. Isabella encourages everyone to get creative, use her recipes as a starting point, and then let their imaginations run wild. She even mentions experimenting with French pastries, adding some Vietnamese flair with things like pandan leaves or coconut milk.
Pandan leaves in a croissant. Now you're speaking my language. My mind's already racing with ideas. But there's something really important that Isabella keeps coming back to throughout the article.
What's that?
She talks about how fusion isn't just about mixing ingredients, it's about cultural exchange, understanding the history and the traditions behind the food. And that feels like a big responsibility for us as home cooks, especially if we're just getting started with fusion.
You're absolutely right. It's not just throwing things together. It's about approaching these cuisines with respect and a real desire to learn.
So how do we do that? How do we make sure we're honoring those traditions while also being creative with fusion?
That's a great question. And I think it's something we need to dive into a little deeper.
Okay, so we talked about the principles and techniques and ingredients, but how do we approach this whole fusion thing with respect and understanding? I mean, it feels like there's something deeper here than just throwing stuff together in a pan.
You're right on the money. It's about understanding the history and traditions behind the food. We need to do a little homework.
Homework, huh? So like reading cookbooks, watching documentaries.
Exactly. Immerse yourself in the cultures. Find cookbooks by Vietnamese authors and French authors, watch some food documentaries, explore blogs written by people from those cultures. It's about getting a feel for why these dishes exist.
Ah, I see. Like understanding the context.
Right. And when you're getting ingredients, try to find authentic products. Go to those Asian markets and French specialty stores. Maybe even connect with local farmers who grow unique ingredients. You'd be surprised what you can find.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bring a little piece of the culture into your own kitchen.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you know someone from Vietnam or France, ask them about their favorite dishes, family recipes, the stories behind their food. People love to share, and you'll learn so much from those personal connections.
That's a great idea. Adds another dimension to the whole thing. So we've got our research, our authentic ingredients. We're ready to learn. What's next?
Time to get creative. But remember, it's a conversation, not a monologue. Be open to feedback, learn from mistakes, and just keep experimenting.
It's like anything creative. Got to be willing to play around a little bit.
Exactly. And one last thing, remember that every time you make a fusion dish, you're not just feeding yourself, you're sharing a story, connecting with cultures, keeping those culinary traditions alive.
Isabella said that fusion cooking is a continuous adventure. That feels like a great note to end on.
Couldn't agree more. Keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, share those delicious discoveries with everyone you love.
And if you want more Vietnamese-French fusion, be sure to check out Isabella's blog. She's got tons of recipes and ideas there. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.
Hi, it's Jamie, and if you enjoyed today's episode of I've Been Cooking, we'd love for you to share it. Leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new recipe. Do you know someone who loves cooking as much as you do? Send this episode their way. And hey, let's stay connected. You can find us on Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook at I've Been Cooking. Tag us to show off your creations and join a community of food lovers worldwide. And if you want to chat with us directly, we're always hanging out on Discord. You'll find the link to join in the footer of our website at I've been cooking. Until next time.